Surprise, monster lovers, it's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. This is gonna be a breakdown of the Titan throwdown that is Godzilla vs. Kong from 2021, a movie that is incredibly crucial to the future of the Monsterverse as it introduces a number of core plot elements that will more than likely come into play into the new Godzilla x Kong movie dropping later this year. So let us make like Kong in Antarctica and swing on into this thing. But even though Kong pushed all the wrong buttons with Godzilla, you don't have to make the same mistake when you hit that like button on this video. Every like is super important to letting YouTube know that you like what we do here on Heavy Spoilers. But if you're a real slut for some of our juicy breakdowns and analyses, then you can become a member and get access to our videos before anybody else. And it's only 99 cents a month too, so you'll barely even notice that that money is gone. But you don't have to, of course. We're just glad that you're here. Also, just a heads up, spoilers for Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 1 in this video. So if you haven't seen that season, watch out. Though I definitely recommend that you watch this show because it's pretty damn great. But anyways, the movie starts off with the Warner Brothers logo with an ancient drawing of Kong from the Iwi tribe of Skull Island on the left and depictions of the Iwi tribe on the bottom right of the frame. Right after this, the legendary logo appears with the ancient tribal depiction of Godzilla on the right, with tribespeople worshipping him on the left. These titans have been around for a long-ass time, so pretty much all of them have been worshipped by the peoples of foregone eras who just assumed that they were all truly gods, with Kong and Mothra being two prime examples in both Kong Skull Island and Godzilla King of the Monsters, respectively. Temples of worship and myths were crafted around the emergence of these titans in the past, with a lot of these ancient cultures referencing an ancient rivalry between Godzilla and Kong's species, a rivalry that would ultimately lead to Kong's species losing and being forced to migrate from the Hollow Earth to Skull Island. But anyways, as both the Warner Brothers and Legendary logos come in, they each glow with a blue and red light, which are of course the main thematic colors of Apex Cybernetics, as well as the colors of the two main energy sources of this film, the blue Hollow Earth energy that powers titans like Godzilla, and the red energy that Apex makes after they secure a sample of Hollow Earth energy and synthetically recreate that energy. So using this blue and red effect early on in the movie was very early foreshadowing for the appearance of Mechagodzilla later on. Then, much like Kong Skull Island did, the movie opens up with a shot of the sun, before showing us Kong waking up. Like I went over in my breakdown of Kong Skull Island, Legendary has very strongly associated Kong with the sun of the upper space human realm, because much like the MCU, the Monsterverse is heavily centered around the concept of energies and energy sources. Since Kong is the last of the Kong species, who have been living in the human realm for a ridiculously long time, Legendary has associated Kong with the human realm's orangey-yellow sun. And because of this, Legendary will typically associate all of Kong's marketing material with an orange or yellow sunshine glow. Whereas Godzilla, a titan brimming with blue raspberry flavored Hollow Earth energy, is always marketed in a blue hue. The initial reveal trailer for the upcoming Godzilla x Kong movie has a blue glowing Godzilla skull and a yellow glowing Kong skull in the foreground because of this. Again, I go over Kong's connection to the sun in more depth in my Kong Skull Island breakdown, so if you want to check that out, feel free. It's really great stuff, and there's a really strong Icarus theme going on in that movie that I dive into, so check it out. But anyways, this all being said, I think that starting the movie off with the sun right before transitioning to Kong waking up was a really great choice here, combined with Kong being annoyed at Monarch's fake sun and turning a tree into a makeshift spear to chuck directly at that fake sun. Like, this was a fantastic way to get audience members new to Kong's character to see just how smart this titan is compared to your average animal. Like, this ape knew that that sun that he was staring at was fake because Skull Island has been his home for hundreds of years. So it's equal parts impressive and hilarious to see millions of Monarch dollars immediately go to waste in their attempt to fool a giant ape into thinking that he's not in a Titan prison cell. But anyways, as Kong goes through his morning routine and takes his big boy shower at a nearby waterfall, Bobby Vinton's rendition of Over the Mountain Across the Sea plays. The lyrics Over the Mountain, A Girl Waits for Me can be heard right when the movie introduces Gia, a character played by deaf actress Kaylee Hoddle in her first ever role. A role that she plays fantastically. She is literally my favorite character in the Monsterverse movies. If anything happens to her in Godzilla x Kong, I will fight the theater staff. I will fight the AMC theater staff. Not a threat, it's a promise. I'm just kidding. Please treat your theater employees with respect, or you won't get your Dune 2 popcorn bowl for your solo sexy time later. Be on your best behavior now. But anyways, before the events of this movie, Gia is actually rescued by Kong when Skull Island was made uninhabitable by a freak storm. Actually, it wasn't any freak storm. It was actually a combination of the freak storm that circles Skull Island all the time and keeps it hidden, with the remnant of the storm left behind by King Ghidorah. Because if you remember, King Ghidorah naturally produced a storm everywhere he went just by being an asshole. He just had an asshole storm with him at all times. But anyway, we learn in the Kingdom Kong prequel comic that another Titan by the name of Camazotz decided to direct King Ghidorah's storm to Skull Island in order to make that island dark and dreary as hell, because Camazotz was a bat Titan, and bats be loving darkness and shit. But although Kong took out the Camazotz with ease, the damage that both of these storms did to Skull Island was so great that it nearly wiped out the entire Iwi tribe, were it not for the intervention of Monarch. Kong and Monarch scientist Dr. Eileen Andrews both resolved to protect Gia after that event, making the three of them a weird-ass jungle family unit. Like, I always thought of Kong as Gia's metaphorical big brother because Gia's biological parents were also killed by a group of skullcrawlers, much like Kong's were, leading to Eileen Andrews adopting Gia as her own. Like, I love how Gia gives her little toy Kong a headband like she does because they sort of look like little Iwi tribal crowns in a way. So if Kong is the king of Skull Island, Gia is sort of like the princess of Skull Island, in a weird way. I mean, in the first Godzilla x Kong movie trailer, we do see Gia sort of being treated like some sort of royalty by what appears to be the natives of the Hollow Earth. Possibly the same natives that could have been responsible for constructing that statue of one of Kong's ancestors that we saw in the throne room in Godzilla vs. Kong. So there could actually be a possibility that Gia could be revealed to be part of some Hollow Earth nobility of some kind, but who knows? That's just the vibes I'm getting from that trailer. But anyways, after this, the opening credit starts with the flipping pages of a notebook with words written in cursive. The one page I could read appears to be a letter from a scientist to another scientist with the words, "I want to see you." We then changed places and I listened to S for a while. Watson read a few paragraphs from the book, places where them ancient enemies were depicted in art and artifacts from archaeological sites and indigenous art from a vast variety of global cultures. Followed by the words, "The question always arises, if these creatures are so massive, why do we have had such difficulty documenting their origins?" At the bottom of the page. Not sure why he do have had to write it like that, because that sentence doesn't make any sense. But whoever is writing this is clearly an explorer of a historian of some sort, tracking Godzilla and Kong's rivalry throughout history. However, the mention of a Watson makes me believe that this passage could be a reference to 1967's King Kong Escapes, as a United Nations nurse named Susan Watson would end up forming a deep connection to Kong after traveling to Kong's Mondo Island with her colleagues Gio Nomura and Carl Nelson. So I have a feeling that the implication could be that we're looking at a letter from this rebooted MonsterVersus version of Jiro Nomura to his love interest Susan Watson about the elusiveness of Godzilla and Kong species throughout time. But it also could be a letter from Carl Nelson, who knows. But anyways, after we see the words ancient enemies circled from this letter, we get ancient artwork of one of the Titanous Kong species facing off against Godzilla, brandishing the same type of Godzilla scale battle axe that Kong would pick up later on in the film. Screenwriter Max Borenstein noted that Kong species had a bit of a refined civilization going on in the Hollow Earth before they were exiled to Skull Island in the Upper Realm. So, ancient civilizations depicting the Kong species crafting weapons out of the body parts of their enemies in order to prepare for battles proves just how mentally advanced Kong species were as a whole. After this, a Sumero-Akkadian cuneiform tablet from the late 4th millennium BC can be seen with the title Giants Battle Underground, to show just how long the Godzilla-Kong beef has been raging on for a long-ass time. Then shortly after, we can hear old-school audio of a man saying, "The interior of the Earth is made up of vast cabins and air pockets, joined by natural avenues," which is actually a quote from the character Dr. Jeremiah Morley from the 1951 film Unknown World, a story about a group of people who journey to the center of the Earth, much like this movie. This is followed by a depiction of the interior of the Earth by 17th century polymath Athanasius Kircher, with extra emphasis on the whirlpools and volcanic caverns of the image, as those were meant to reflect the whirlpool-like vile vortex portals that create wormhole tunnels to the center of the Earth. However, in this universe, this artwork has a skull crawler from Skull Island hidden inside of it, which I thought was a really fun detail to add. Then right after this, we can see the same ancient cave drawing of Godzilla fighting Kong that we saw at the very end of Godzilla King of the Monsters. This photograph was apparently taken by a group of mysterious explorers who went on a Hollow Earth expedition to Antarctica in 1926, never to be seen again, presumably because they fell down one of these portals. This is followed by images of Nathan Lynn's unsuccessful book on the Hollow Earth called Hollow Earth, Gravity Paradox, and the New Frontier, with a modernized map of what Lynn believes the Hollow Earth system to look like. Then shortly after this, we can hear a man saying the words, "There's an ecosystem out there, the likes of which we can't imagine, and the place to find it is this island," with that man actually being John Goodman's William Randa from Kong Skull Island, a character that we see photographed standing in front of a Kong skull just moments before he was brutally eaten and turned into skull crawler poop. Then after we get some shots of Kong's muscular and skeletal anatomy, we switch to some Godzilla data, with Godzilla's atomic breath being revealed to be the result of the ionization of hydrogen isotopes on this piece of paper here. And right next to that piece of paper, it's noted that Godzilla's atomic breath can reach up to temperatures of 20,000 degrees Celsius, which is 32,032 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who don't speak the rest of the world. So, needless to say, this is more than your average halitosis. Then after we see footage of 2 nuclear bombs dropping, we can get a look at a map of Skull Island that emphasizes the perpetual storm that has made said island uninhabitable, followed by monarch imagery of Kong being kept in his biodome prison. Then Godzilla's nuclear pulse is highlighted next, which is something that we saw him unleash to the max onto that crabby bitch King Ghidorah at the end of his last movie. This is followed by footage of Godzilla shooting his atomic breath into the mouth of the Jinshin Mushi MUTO from Godzilla 2014. A MUTO wrongfully given the designation Titanus MUTO in this opening, because we hardcore Monsterverse nerds know that MUTO is just the scientific term for all of the massively unidentified terrestrial organisms on the planet. But we do learn that Monarch calls Godzilla's atomic breath down the throat of his enemies Godzilla's kiss of death, which I thought was very fitting because, you know, that's one fatal French kiss, man. Then we get some Kong statistics, which marks Kong as being 104 feet and weighing 158 tons, which is actually not accurate to the Kong of the modern day here. Those are just his proportions in 1973 when we saw him in Kong Skull Island. From 1973 to the year 2024, Kong has actually grown 3 times taller for Godzilla vs. Kong, standing at a whopping 335 feet. The notes on Kong call him highly adaptive and resourceful, capable of using tools like an axe, which is hilarious because we actually don't see Kong wielding an axe until this movie. So whoever wrote this note probably was referencing old Kong artwork from ancient civilizations, or must have had to have written it after the events of Godzilla vs. Kong. They also note of Kong's superpower durability and regenerative abilities, but that Kong is also susceptible to fire attacks. But then again, aren't we all? I mean, I know I am. Last time I checked. I haven't checked in a while, though. It then gives a list of creatures that Kong has fought and defeated, including a giant squid, a skull crawler, and a mysterious titan with no name, possibly referring to the Camazotz titan Kong disposed of in the Kingdom Kong prequel comic. The giant squid that is referenced here is actually called a Meyer squid, and the only person that actually saw Kong eat one was Toby Kebbell's Jack Chapman character, and that character's ass got eaten by a skull crawler before he could tell anyone, so I'm assuming that Monarch has discovered that Meyer squids are Kong's favorite food to eat on the regular, after observing him for so long. After this, we see stats on King Ghidorah, who's referred to as the devil with 3 heads, a quote that I believe was attributed to Dr. Graham, a devil who stood at a whopping 521 feet and weighed 121,000 tons. Much like your father after Thanksgiving dinner. Then the opening ends with a bracket of all the past Titans Godzilla and Kong faced in the past, with footage of the Jinshin Mushi, Rodan, and Ghidorah being seen defeated on Godzilla's side, and footage of Kong fighting a skull crawler on Kong's side, right before the camera zooms in into the center of the planet, flashing the same rainbow of lights that we saw Lynn's Hollow Earth expedition team experience as they went through the Hollow Earth wormhole in this movie. This of course leads us to the Godzilla vs. Kong logo that again has Godzilla in a blue glow and Kong in a yellow glow to match the energies of the realms that they represent. Then the movie continues with Bernie Hayes recording episode 245 of the Titan Truth podcast, while holding a flip phone, very much showing his paranoia about having his conversations tracked by the all-seeing eye of Big Brother. Because next to nobody that isn't a drug dealer or, I don't know, Jason Bourne is using a flip phone in 2024. And on Bernie's lap, we can see the holster that he keeps his emergency alcohol in case he ever needs to take his last drink before meeting up with his super dead wife. Because, gotta say, that wife is super dead, man. As Bernie walks towards the Apex facility that he's been spying at for about 5 years, you can see the same helicopter that CEO Walter Simmons would use to escape Godzilla's coming rampage, landing on the roof of one of the buildings. Very much meant to foreshadow how the bigwigs at Apex knew that Godzilla was on the way before everybody else. Then, as a piece of Apex video propaganda plays, it starts with imagery of human eyeballs, quickly followed by the lens of a camera, a move that I believe was a bit of foreshadowing towards Apex construction of Mechagodzilla, as Mechagodzilla's eyeball is exactly what would be used to summon Godzilla over the course of this movie, in very similar fashion to the gamma radiation emitters that were used by Dr. Suzuki and Hiroshi Randa in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. For this reason, I believe that this movie has a little subtle eye symbolism going on throughout. You know, like how the symbol of Bernie's Titan Truth podcast is the Eye of Providence symbol at the top of a pyramid, you know, much like we see on American Money, which I believe is not so coincidental foreshadowing to the end of the film where Mechagodzilla's eyeball summons Godzilla from Apex's pyramid-shaped headquarters in Hong Kong, or how we can see an eyeball on the window of this noodle shop that Bernie, Madison, and Josh first meet up at. Then the Apex propaganda video mentions that Apex is working on advancements on the human mind and artificial intelligence, which is of course not only meant to foreshadow their development of the Mechagodzilla project, but also something that we saw firsthand in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. When Apex was originally operating under the name Applied Experimental Technologies, one of their employees, Cora, discovers that AET was conducting highly unethical experiments on the brains of chimpanzees in order to further their psionic sciences. Then, much like Walter Simmons was expecting, Godzilla goes full Florida man and attacks Apex's Pensacola facility, leading CNN to reveal that only 8 people died as a result, which is actually a pretty decent number, all things considered. The lower third of this report also reveals that Monarch has set up 3 temporary relief shelters to aid people in the area, with one of those shelters being managed by Madison's father, Mark Russell, played once again by actor Kyle Chandler. Fun fact about Kyle Chandler, Godzilla vs. Kong would actually be Chandler's second appearance in a King Kong movie, as he would play the character Bruce Baxter in 2005's King Kong movie as well. So something tells me that your boy Kyle loves him some massive monkey. As Madison watches the CNN footage in class, a poster of a dinosaur can be seen behind her, which is an obvious allusion to Godzilla, because, you know, Madison be on Team Godzilla. Next to the TV, a poster that says "Titans are everywhere, stay aware" can be seen, showing just how much the world has been forced to adjust with Titan appearances as their new normal. A Titan preparation is key poster can also be seen after students exit class at the bell. Then later, when we first meet Nathan Lind at Philadelphia's Denham University of Theoretical Science, we can see him sitting alone in the dark holding a toy astronaut, with that astronaut being clear representation for Nathan's dead brother David, a brother who died as a result of a trip to underspace that went horribly wrong due to the unexpected force of the hollow Earth's gravity. So Nathan very much viewed his brother as an astronaut of sorts. As Ren Serizawa sneaks through Nathan's front door, we can see that Nathan stuck a drawing of a man with their brain hollowed out with the words Hollow Earth HQ. This movie's subtle way of showing us just how much Nathan has accepted nobody in his field taking him seriously. David Lind was actually appointed Monarch's head of interterrestrial exploration in 2021, the very same year of his tragic accident during his trip to the Hollow Earth, trip that saw the aircraft that he was using completely crash under the weight of the sudden inverted Hollow Earth gravity. If Ren Serizawa's name sounds familiar, it's because he's actually the son of Ken Watanabe's Ishiro Serizawa, who died exploding himself to resurrect Godzilla in 2019's Godzilla film. Played by actor Shun Oguri, Ren Serizawa joined Apex in large part due to his father ignoring him most of his life to go hunt for dinosaur bones and mythical monsters. Ishiro was so obsessed with his job that he even missed out on his own wife's funeral because he was so preoccupied with Monarch business. So you can understand why Ren would want to side with an evil organization bent on killing every Titan that they can find. It was Ren's way of destroying everything his father stood for, as Ishiro Serizawa spent his entire career trying to get humanity to coexist with Titans. Anyways, as Walter Simmons introduces himself like some type of Mexican ninja, he drops one of Nathan Lynn's books next to some classified Monarch documents. Classified documents detailing the operations of the Topex Poseidon satellite that was launched in August 1992 to record the topography of Earth's oceans. Data that Nathan undoubtedly needed for his research into the hidden world underneath the surface. Then after Simmons shows Nathan magnetic imaging of the hollow Earth system of tunnels, Wren notes that the energy readings that radiate from the hollow Earth match those that emanate from Godzilla, which makes sense considering that Godzilla and the hollow Earth both are brimming with the same blue, powerful, life-bringing energy that comes from the very core of the hollow Earth itself. A near-infinite energy source that Walter Simmons coveted for his ultimate Mechagodzilla Apex Predator. When Nathan agrees to team up with Apex and mentions that he needs the help of an old colleague, the camera zooms in on a picture of Rebecca Hall's Eileen Andrews on the cover of Scientific Future magazine, giving Andrews the title The Kong Whisperer. The scene then transitions to Kong's biodome, where we see that Kong tried to throw 2 more tree spears at the fake sky in protest of his imprisonment. As Nathan Lind attempts to recruit Andrews to his excursion, he mentions how Andrews always thought Skull Island was the hollow Earth brought to the surface, which would make sense considering that the Kingdom Kong prequel comic would reveal Skull Island to have a hollow Earth tunnel entryway as well, an entryway where all the Titan wildlife on the island initially came from. When Eileen agrees to tag along with Nathan, Elvis Presley's Loving Arms plays as a shot of ships carrying Kong to Antarctica float into frame. The first boat that we see has the number 85 on it, which could be a reference to the film Godzilla 1985. But one of my favorite shots of this movie comes when Nathan Lynn introduces himself to Walter Simmons' daughter, Maya, played by actress Eiza Gonzalez. As the two shake hands, notice how the sun is positioned in relation to the clouds, because the sun looks like a pupil inside of a giant cloud eyeball, a sunny eyeball seemingly staring down at Maya Simmons. Considering that this movie seems to have a strong eyeball theme going on, combined with the fact that Kong Skull Island firmly established Kong to have a strong symbolic connection to the sun, I sort of see this solar eye as Kong's eye, foreshadowing the last thing that Maya Simmons would see before she is obliterated by Kong himself later on in the movie. But anyways, as Eileen Andrews is talking to the ship's captain later on, she says that all Titans seem to have a way of detecting the threats of other Titans, which is something that Apple TV's Monarch Legacy of Monsters dives into when it explains that the gamma radiation that Titans emit are exactly how Titans are able to find each other so quickly. But anyways, the scene then transitions to Madison listening to Bernie's Titan Truth podcast as the camera focuses in on this newspaper article about Madison's dead, crazy-ass mom, Emma. An article that questions whether or not Emma should be remembered as a villain or a savior, which is definitely pointing towards the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters when closing credits news articles reveal that Emma Russell's actions caused a global increase in Titan radiation, which in turn caused a number of previously dead areas around the world to flourish with new vegetative life, which is exactly what Emma Russell always intended when she and Alan Jonah released all the Titans onto the planet with that Orca device. And behind that article, a copy of the incarnation of Ahriman, the embodiment of evil on Earth, can be seen, possibly implying how Emma was a secret embodiment of evil in disguise. But what I found hilarious is that immediately following this, we can see Madison typing in the Titan Truth podcast web address onto her computer, with a whole ass www prefix at the start, which implies that Madison types www before every website like some type of psychopath. Like, these Russell women just ain't right, man. But anyways, as Madison goes through Bernie's podcast titles, episode 244 was apparently all about Bernie's theories on Mothra's pregnancy, and asking just who Mothra's baby daddy could be. This, of course, is in reference to the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters, where a news article revealed the discovery of a new Mothra egg after Mama Mothra died protecting Godzilla. Madison's bestie Josh then rolls up with his brother's van while appropriately blasting Breaking the Law by Judas Priest, which leads them both to go on a search for Bernie by tracking down Bernie's bleach dealer, a dealer who references the internet era where all the children were eating detergent pods to help speed the brain damage along. Then later, after everyone learns that Kong and Gia have been signing to each other this entire time, Gia tells Eileen that Kong was afraid to reveal his big brain energy to humanity, likely in large part to him being studied in a massive biodome prison. Kong was smart enough to know that he was being treated like a science experiment and didn't trust humanity enough to talk with them, which I thought was super interesting. This is then, of course, followed by Godzilla's inevitable attack on the convoy of 11 ships. As Godzilla and Kong engage in their first fight, I found it super impressive that Kong was smart enough to dodge Godzilla's atomic breath without ever seeing it in action before. Though you can probably attribute that to Kong's genetic memory, as a number of his species have tussled with Godzilla's people in the past. And in order to help Kong, Eileen Andrews convinces the convoy to deploy depth charges, much like the seismic charges that Landsat used in Kong Skull Island to map out the area. Then after this, we see Bernie, Maddie, and Josh break into the ruins of Apex Pensacola, where they find Apex's hidden subterranean base, a base that Bernie assumed was the sign of Apex creating a secret breakaway civilization for the elite. You know, in case one of the elite accidentally hits the doomsday button, which is ironically what sort of happens in this movie. But while Bernie was technically wrong, his suspicions weren't completely unfounded. In Monarch Legacy of Monsters Episode 5, we learn that organizations like Strata Secure Homes exist to provide the elite with custom bunkers in the event of a Godzilla attack. So Bernie is probably assuming that Apex has a network of such bunkers to form a hidden colony for the rich, which is totally, a rich person thing to do. Apex Hong Kong is literally a giant Illuminati pyramid too, which is kind of hilarious. Like they're not even trying to hide it. Then immediately after this, the group learns that Apex has been collecting skull crawlers, which they would later learn were being used as target practice for their Mechagodzilla. The ending of Monarch Legacy of Monsters sort of sets this up by revealing Apex's presence on Skull Island when May and the random women return from the Axis Mundi dimension. Then, as a solution to their boats being destroyed by Godzilla, Apex decides to carry Kong with a fleet of hardy helicopters, a strong nod by director Adam Wingard to 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla, where King Kong is transported via balloons. Then after Kong is encouraged by Gia to enter the Vile Vortex in order to be transported to the Hollow Earth, the gang hop into Apex's Hollow Earth aerial vehicle and follow Kong. As they travel through the vortex, notice how the vortex shoots them all into warp speed as flashing lights surround them. Much like the Monarch show would emphasize, this is because the Hollow Earth itself isn't actually inside of the planet Earth, but is instead another dimension entirely with warp gates inside of the planet. This trip to the Hollow Earth was meant to be an interdimensional journey as opposed to people literally journeying into the planet's core. Because, I'm not sure if you heard, but the planet's core is very hot. It's very hot. I hear it's even hotter than Africa, but those are just rumors. Africa's pretty hot. But anyways, as Kong begins to explore the Hollow Earth, we can see a number of Hollow Earth creatures make quick cameos, like these leaf wings that fly overhead, this warbat that Kong absolutely murders and then eats like a frickin' freak, and these mantle claw crabs that perfectly camouflage into the ground. Bill Randa actually ran into one of these mantle claw crabs in the opening of Monarch Legacy of Monsters on Skull Island in 1973. Then one of these mantle claw crabs are eaten by the fan favorite Hollow Earth lizard dog, Titanus Doug, a monster that Adam Wingard loved so much that he decided to include in a much bigger role in the upcoming Godzilla x Kong film. So all of you Doug lovers out there can feel free to eat some crab and rejoice because Doug is coming back. Then as Kong approaches the peak of the mountain, he reaches out to a stone hand as he floats away to the upper side of the Hollow Earth, giving us another homage to Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, much like we saw Madison do with Mothra in Godzilla King of the Monsters. And later, when Team Madison comes across Mechagodzilla for the first time, we also see Ren Serizawa sitting comfortably in the same King Ghidorah head that we saw Godzilla remove in Godzilla 2019, with that head being the head of the stupidest Ghidorah head of the bunch, Kevin. But what I really dug about this concept was that it truly made Godzilla a symbolic mashup of both Godzilla and Kong's greatest enemies up until that point, as we see Ren Serizawa becoming a metaphorical skull crawler, by crawling into the skull of Ghidorah and using Ghidorah's ability to quickly regenerate their own neural pathways to create a supercomputer capable of controlling the Mechagodzilla mech. So Mechagodzilla is essentially a skull crawler and King Ghidorah combined, in essence anyway. But anyways, later, we see Kong approach the Hollow Earth Castle, a castle seemingly built underneath a massive weather anomaly that appears to perpetually hover between these two sides of the Hollow Earth realm. If I were to guess, I think the storm was actually created as a result of the energies within the Hollow Earth itself being channeled through the top of this Hollow Earth castle. And I suspect the other side to have a similar looking structure as well, with both of those energies colliding together to create the storm. Like, I definitely feel like the storm is a byproduct of the core of the Hollow Earth. The actual throne inside of the structure appears to be where a ton of Hollow Earth energy from the Hollow Earth core is concentrated for this reason. But before Kong opens the doors to the throne, a red hand from one of his species can be seen on the door, possible foreshadowing to the Scar King's past war with the Kong species in the Hollow Earth. When Kong enters, Kong pulls his battle axe from the skull of what looks to be a skullcrawler and takes his seat on the throne, officially making his claim as King Kong. As Kong sits on the throne, Hellhawks can be seen on the ceiling, staring down at him and scoping out some of the humans for future snacks. Then soon after this, Kong's genetic memory triggers him to putting his axe on a marking on the ground, causing the Godzilla scale on the axe to draw energy from the Hollow Earth core. Because if you remember, Godzilla himself appears to be a massive energy sponge of a beast, so it makes sense that his scales could do this as well. And in response to Apex activating Mechagodzilla, Godzilla appears in Hong Kong, causing Monarch director Guilerman, played by the late and great Lance Reddick, to call for an evacuation of the city. Reddick also cameoed in the 1999 Godzilla film from TriStar in an uncredited role. Rest in peace, King. We miss you. You're one of the greatest to ever do it. But anyways, as the castle begins to collapse as a result of Godzilla's blast, we can see a statue of a past Kong begin to fall, very much implying that there is a sentient race of beings in the Hollow Earth itself that is advanced enough to create art to honor important figures. A race of people that we might have seen make an appearance in the first Godzilla x Kong trailer. And after Maya Simmons betrays the good guys by sending the Hollow Earth energy signature to her father, who apparently has the greatest Wi-Fi signal in existence, we can see that some type of glitch or something in the processing caused that Hollow Earth energy signature to go from blue to red, possibly implying that Apex created a new but unstable artificial strain of Hollow Earth energy. Then Godzilla would apparently find a vile vortex directly underneath the city of Hong Kong and then would shoot an atomic breath blast at that vile vortex to reach Kong. But anyways, after Kong jumps through the hole that Godzilla made, Kong and Godzilla start their face-off. And I freaking love how Kong learned from his first fight with Godzilla and focuses on making sure that Godzilla cannot fire off his atomic breath. And to this aim, Kong pretty much goes immediately to his Kong patented jaw-ripping move that Kong iconically used on a T-Rex in both the original King Kong movie and Peter Jackson's movie from 2005. But of course, Godzilla wasn't having any of that. But my favorite shot from this fight comes when we see Kong hanging from the top of this building here, as it definitely feels like a homage to Kong's dangling off the Empire State Building in 1933. But of course, Godzilla and Kong's fight would be interrupted due to King Ghidorah's regenerative abilities being so diesel that its nervous system was able to override Ren Serizawa's control, electrocuting Serizawa in his chair, leaving him seemingly dead. However, I believe that there is a strong chance here that Serizawa did not die from this at all, but instead could have had his brain overwritten by King Ghidorah's mind as well, due to his brain being connected to Ghidorah's. So if Serizawa survived, I could definitely see King Ghidorah possessing his body and becoming a monster-human hybrid of a villain in a future MonsterVerse movie. We saw a very similar thing happen in Pacific Rim Uprising with Charlie Day's character after he melded his mind with a kaiju. But anyways, a little later, Godzilla and Mechagodzilla have a very Dragon Ball Z inspired clashing of atomic energies, proving that Mechagodzilla and Apex's new red energy to be the superior power. And Mechagodzilla was about to kill Godzilla with Godzilla's own kiss of death move if it wasn't for King Kong saving the day at the insistence of his sister Gia, ending the Titan clash with King Kong as the victor over Mechagodzilla after suffering an initial defeat from Vanillazilla. Director Adam Wingard only accepted to do this project if he could end the movie with a distinct winner. So in the Godzilla vs. Kong matchup, the winner of that fight was ultimately Godzilla. But when it came to Mechagodzilla versus everyone, Kong took the crown. Then the movie of course ends with the Hollies singing The Air That I Breathe, accompanied with the revelation that Monarch has installed an outpost in the Hollow Earth to monitor Kong and explore this new habitat, an installation that the first Godzilla x Kong trailer revealed that we will be seeing again very soon. But anyways, that's it for this breakdown of Godzilla vs. Kong from 2021. What did you guys think of this movie? Let us know in the comment section down below. And like always, you can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or wherever I am on the internet, especially on the Guardians of the Galaxy podcast, where me and my friends Tommy Bechtold and Whitney Van Lenningham talk about all the latest nerd stuff in the most fun way possible. But most importantly, you can follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube, and when you do, make sure to hit that bell so that you can get notifications every time we upload a video. But again, I love you guys so much. You guys are amazing for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys next time.